All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Today is April 17, 2024, and this meeting is for our realtors, LG Realty team, and we're going to get started with our interest rates. As of yesterday, Freddie Mac's um, survey here showed that the 30-year fixed rates were around 6.88 versus your 15 years of 6.16. Okay, but that was your Freddie Mac. But your Mortgage News Daily, we saw the interest rate go up to 7.50. So it is the one of the highest one that we saw for past couple of weeks now. So there's some files that needs to be locked in, and these are the clients who are concerned. So we have to advise them accordingly. So when it comes to these interest rates, you have to tell your clients, hey, if they're going to wait until the interest rates come down, the prices will go up because there will be more demand because the interest rates are going down. Okay, this is your top tier scenario when you're looking at these interest rates. In the news here, you saw your most homeowners in USA have lower mortgage rates than the current market. So right now we're going to show you a chart in the next slide here. You can see that there were more than 1 million homes that did not sell their houses, right? The owners did not sell their houses just because they were not able to get the new interest rate that they want, right? They're locked in at an interest rate that's so low that it's hard for them to give that up. Okay, so there's a 3% gap, which I'm going to show you on this chart here. Okay, so on this chart here, you see that this chart is going from 2000 until 2023. So for 23 years here, and you can see the interest rates are from 2% to 8%. Your gray line here, the gray line is showing what is your existing mortgages rates are locked in at, which you can see are around 4%. On the other hand, the darker black line here, these are the new interest rates, and you can see that that's close to 7.5% that we just showed you. So there's about at least 3.2% gap. So that makes it really hard for your clients as a realtors. Hey, you want to sell your house? They say, hey, I have to think twice, sometimes more than that, just to make sure that, hey, I really need to sell this house. Otherwise, why would I want to give up that mortgage? That's such a, on 4%, 3.5%. Some people even have it in twos, right? Because they, refied it at the right time. So your clients are going through this. So you have to be understanding that, hey, they're not willing to sell the house because they're locked in at a very low interest rate. Some other headlines in the news were sky, high sky, your sky high mortgage rates aren't just crushing home buyers. It's a problem for the home buyers and it's a problem for the sellers. Why? Because the sellers simply can't sell that house. They want to, right? But they just simply cannot. Why is that? Because they have that low interest rate. They're what we call them, they're locked in. We also call them they're in a golden handcuffs. Why? Because they don't want to be in that house, but they don't have any option either. Okay, so why the Fed is not cutting rates, right? That's the only question that we get almost daily basis. Why the Feds are not cutting rates? So the Fed is just not looking at the housing market. They're looking at the overall economy. So let's go through that real quick. Your inflation data. Your inflation compared to your February of 2023, it was at 6%. So when the inflation is at 6%, what the Fed has to do, they have to control that, bring that down. And they did a pretty good job where they cut it in half already in February of 2024 at 3.2%. Okay, their target is 2% overall. So will they achieve that this year? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see that. But they're trying to bring down the inflation much as possible. Your unemployment, right? People are employed. Your unemployment is not is below 5%. If it stays below 5%, the economy is doing well. Okay, your employment, you see the jobs that are being created, they're increasing. You can see that in February of last year it was 155 million versus now is at 157 million. So if people are working, the employment rate is high, why would the Fed needs to cut the rates? Okay, If the consumers are spending, what happened around COVID time? Everybody was sitting home and there was no spendings going on, right? Nobody was going out there and trying to buy a house or a car or anything like that because they were scared for their life. Everybody was at home. So the interest rates were cut down so there could be more and more activity going on in the market. And we see that that is happening, right? More and more activities happening in trillions of dollars. In February of 2023, there was about $18 trillion in consumer spending versus 19 trillion in February of 2024. So the Fed is looking at these data and say, hey, people are spending money, so why would we need to cut the rates? Your gross domestic product, this is your GDP, that also matters. And you can see here, it also in the fourth quarter of 2023, it went up to 3.4 where it was at 2.6. Again, all these indicators are showing the Fed that, hey, the economy is doing just fine, right? So if the mortgage rates that we saw in February of 6.8, we saw that in April right now, we're seeing around 7.5, in some cases even higher, depending on their credit scores. So if the economy is doing well, the Fed will not need to rush to cut rates. And that's exactly what's happening. We projected that the first cut should happen in March. That did not happen. Now, hopefully, it will happen in the next meeting that they will do. Okay. So those are the news. So overall, if your client is asking you, hey, why the interest rates are not coming down, you can tell them, hey, overall, the economy is doing well and the Fed is just waiting for more data to be released so where they can make their adjustments and start cutting rates. Okay, they're still projecting 3. Now there's some reports that they're projecting 2 cuts. So if that's the case, that means we're still going to see high interest rate throughout the year. Okay. So this would affect all of you guys. This is your buyer's agent commission. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac made a clear statement saying that the commissions won't count against your limits. So I'm going to talk about in details what that means. Okay, so just remember that the Feds had that conversation or put a release as of yesterday. So what does that mean? Or why was that even a concern? So NAR, which is our National Association of Realtors, and the Mortgage Brokers Association, both of them put together, they reached out to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, stating, hey, there's so many agents that are confused that if we ask for a seller's concession, right, how will that work? You guys already set a limit. Will that be addition to this or not? So we want to clarify that. So NAR's commission settlement feud concerns over lower income. So these are the people who don't have enough down payment, right? Maybe they're going with the FHA program for 3.5%, and they barely have their closing cost and they need some help. How are they going to come up with your commission as well? So that is the concern that NAR had, and FHA, your Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they did reply back and confirming that. Okay. So what is a seller's concession, first of all? Right, we need to figure that out. When we say seller's concession, what is that? That is going to be your closing cost that the seller has agreed to pay, right? So why would a seller would want to do that? Only if he wants to sell that house quickly. If he has or she has multiple offers, they're not even considering anything with the concession. They will consider concession when they're having a hard time selling that house, or they just want to sell that house as quickly as possible. Okay, so the seller might say, hey, I'll be able to cover part or all your property taxes, your title insurance, your recording fees, your appraisal fees, your attorney fees, or your loan origination fees. So these are all part of your closing cost. And I understand that you have your down payment, but I also understand you don't have enough closing costs. So let me help you out. That's what the seller is saying, right? Do we see that a lot in our market here in Queens or Nassau? Not really. But you might be running into this issue where you have to ask for seller's concession. Okay, so what are the limits? We have to understand that as well. So if your client is going with a FHA loan, so the limit is 6%, meaning you can ask your seller, hey, my client is going with the FHA loan and we need 6% concession. So this way we need helping hand with the closing cost. So we need to get that 6% back at the closing table. So that's fine with your FHA. It gets a little bit more tricky when it's a conventional loan. So conventional loan will matter how much down payment are you doing and your property type. So if it's a primary residence, you're going to live there and you put down less than 10%, then the maximum seller's concession could be is 3%. Okay? If it's going to be your primary residence and you're going to put down between 10 to 25% down payment, then you can ask for 6%. If in rare cases you're going to put down more than 25%, then you can ask for 9% concession. Okay? And if you're not going to live there, if it's going to be a investment property, then the maximum you can ask for is 2%. So if you're an investor, you're trying to buy a property, then you should not be asking for any concessions because you are an investor. You should have those funds available. Okay? So this should make sense to you guys. If your client is a FHA client, is doing a loan through FHA, then the maximum is 6%. Okay? For conventional, if it's between 10 and 25, 6% as well. That's the easiest way to remember it. Okay, if they're putting down less than 10%, then 3% will be your seller's concession. Does anyone have any questions on this, guys? So these are the limits that your seller's concessions are allowed. Okay. So now your buyer's commission, you're asking, maybe Rupinder, you will ask your client, hey, I need to get paid maybe 2%, just saying as an example. If you're going to ask for 2%, how are they say, hey, I don't have any money left. I have enough for the down payment and I still need some helping hand with the closing cost. And now you're asking me for your commission. I don't have those funds. Then you're going to say, hey, we can put it in the offer where you would ask for seller's concession of 2% so I can get paid. Okay. So that 2% addition that you're asking for, FHA made it, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac made it clear that 2% will not count against this 6%. So this 6% can go towards your closing cost for any of those things that we mentioned earlier, but that 2% that you're asking for will not count part of this. Okay, that's the biggest takeaway. So that 6%, they're asking for closing cost, they will get that. In addition to that, they can get 2% for yourself. Okay, but there is a catch. So you guys need to understand that as well. The appraised value. If the appraised value is lower, then we have a problem. So to give you an example, I'm going to give you two different examples here. So let's say for the first one, the asking price is $525. And you said, hey, we're going to agree to $568. That's a big difference, right? You're going overboard, but you're telling them, hey, we need around 8% seller's concession. 6% will go to the closing cost, which is $32,000. Addition to that, I also need 2% for my buyer's agent, which is $10,000. So collectively, when you add these two numbers up, you would need to appraise this property at $568. It is not realistic. It's going to be really hard for you to get a 6% seller's concession for the closing cost and get your 2%. Why is that? Because the appraisal value has a huge gap. Okay. What is realistic is something like this. Same property, $525 asking price, and you agreed on $535. Right? That client does not need any help with the closing cost, but they do need 2% seller's concession for yourself. Right? 2% is $10,900, but the appraised value must be $535. Right? So if the property value is at $535, this is much more realistic. Right? So this is going to be much more realistic. This is doable. When you see that the asking price or the contract price and the appraisal value is about, we have $10,000 difference, that might be doable compared to where there's about $40,000 or more difference in that. Okay. So just to review, what our seller's concession is going to be the closing cost that the seller is willing to pay. What is going to be, what is it covering is going to be the closing cost, property taxes, title, recording fees, or any of that sort. What's the maximum you can ask for? For FHA is 6% closing cost. On top of that, you can ask for your percentage as a buyer's agent. Okay. So I'm pretty sure you guys have questions on this. Anyone with any questions here? Okay. So people who are watching this recorded, you guys can send me any message, regarding this. The point is that you guys understand it and you can tell your client, but make sure you do bring up the appraised value part as well. Okay, we just can't say, hey, let's just add $10,000 to the asking price. We're gonna offer, 525. Let's offer 535 and get that 2% concession, but make sure that the appraised value is there as well. So how do we do this? When you're valuing the property, you got to keep it realistic. If you feel like that the appraised value won't be there, tell your client, hey, we will have an issue, or we may get into an issue if the appraised value doesn't come to our agreed price. Okay. Next, guys, why renters are not buying, right? This was a survey done by Redfin here. So we're just going to look at the top few of them. Number one was that the available homes, right, are too expensive. First, we say that there's not enough properties on the market. Second is that the property that is on the market is too expensive, right? How many times as a listing agent we go to a seller and say, hey, let's put this property on the market for $600,000. They will always say, no, I think it's worth more, right? Because they're the seller. They have that one property to sell and they're going to try to get it on the highest end possible. But you as a realtor, when you come in the game, you're doing your research. Keep it realistic. You don't want to get a property valued over $100,000 or $200,000 over market price, and you're just holding that property and wasting your time. Okay. So the renters are saying that the property that are available is just simply too expensive. That's 44%. Next, around 35% said that, hey, they have the ability to save for down payment is difficult, right? So if they're having an issue with the down payment and then you surprise them with closing costs and then the buyer's agent, that client is not ready in today's market. They may have to wait a few more months, maybe collect more funds, or go through a seller's concession. Okay. Number 33% was the ability to afford mortgage payment. Sometimes they love the house. When they do the math with their loan officer, that maybe their budget was maybe $3,500 per month, and maybe one of our loan officers say, hey, no, based on your information, based on this property, you would need to, come up with $4,500 per month. And simply put, they're saying, hey, I'm going to still rent. I'm not going to buy. So your focus should be people who are ready. So don't assume that because of this survey, people are not buying. People are buying. It's just that there's less activity going on, and you have to find the right people. You have to vet your, KV Core clients and start, talking to them and see who's ready, who's not. Don't assume that, hey, I spoke to this person 6 months ago and maybe they already bought a house, right? Connect with your clients, especially who are renting, and see how they change their mind. Okay. Foreclosures are going a little bit up now, guys. About 3% in Q1 went up. So your conversation to the homeowner, especially if someone mentions that, hey, I'm not able to make my mortgage payments. This could be maybe they bought a house 2 years ago or 20 years ago. Does not matter. If they cannot make a payment, you have to find out, do they have a valid hardship? First, you have to understand what is a valid hardship, right? If they simply say, hey, I have a steady job, I have no problem, but I just choose not to pay the mortgage, then that is not a valid hardship. So what is a valid hardship, or what is considered in a short sale is when in a short sale where the lender is agreeing to accept less amount than the mortgage amount that is due. So maybe the mortgage amount that is due is $600,000. And you as a realtor think that the property is worth $500,000 because you did the research, right? Then you may be able to do a short sale. But every short sale needs to have a hardship. Why would a bank just want to give you free money? Say, hey, you owe $600,000 and you're asking us to, give you this, release you from this loan for $500,000. Why would we do that? Tell us, what is the actual hardship? Maybe number one, it might be your financial hardship, maybe loss of income, right? Reduced income, unemployment, your medical bills, right? There was a divorce or death in the family, right? You had a true hardship, and you can document that, hey, you had a hardship and now you are not able to make your mortgage payment. Okay. Next is your negative equity. Sometimes you go through those mortgages, your ARM loans, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Those are really scary loans because maybe in the beginning they seem really appealing. Hey, my mortgage payment is low. And then, a few years go by and all of a sudden your payment has doubled, right? Or has gone up 30%, 40%, and you're not able to make those payments. And when you're making them, it's just not enough. When it's not enough, you're having a negative equity, right? Or maybe you lost your job, or you're transferring your job to a different state, right? Completely different things that's going on with your life. They may be able to accept those. Or if your property has major repairs that needs to be done, right? You feel like, hey, there needs to be a gut renovation. Maybe the seller that was the homeowners that's living there, that person is living there for quite some time now, and they did not take care of the property, and there was a flood or something going on where we need major repairs for that property. So the lender might say, hey, yes, I understand that you owe $600,000, but you need to repair this property, and it may cost you $150,000, and we'll give you that discount. Okay. So again, you need to know what is the real reason they're not making that payment, if it's valid or not. If it is valid, then we can put the property on the market, and we can see what kind of offers we get and present those offers to the lender, and hopefully they will accept those offers in a short sale. Okay. It's really important that you guys understand valid hardships, and you can definitely help out so many homeowners out there, right? We can have a steady job. It's our life, we get so many new things or unexpected things coming up all of a sudden, right? You never know when things going to change for your clients. But having an open communication, and if they're talking to you about any hardship, make sure they have a valid one. Okay. And obviously the biggest one is if themselves, they're going through a serious illness, disability. We had a homeowner where the person had cancer, and the lender had no problem accepting the short sale. On the other hand, some of these guys will say, hey, I lost my job, and then all of a sudden they have W-2s coming up. That means they did not lose their job. So you have to figure out if it's valid or not. Do not waste your time if it's not valid. Okay. We're not going to pretend here that we can help them out or do something. We cannot. If it's a valid hardship, we should be able to help them out. Okay. All right, guys. Next, this was a survey done, and I want to focus on, this is the whole New York City here. There were top 10 neighborhoods to watch out for, right? So we're serving a couple of them here. So I really want you to focus. So maybe your Zillow advertisement, maybe any advertisement that you're doing, maybe you want to target these areas where you can get some leads out of it. Why is that? Because these are the hot areas where the searches are increasing. Some of them are increasing by 10%. So that's a good indicator that you want to advertise in those areas. So in Queens here, we see Ridgewood, we see Long Island City, we see Jackson Heights, Kew Gardens, Woodside, right? All these areas are for you to advertise yourself in, because there's more activity going on there. Okay. On the same note here, people who are spending money on Zillow, right? Zillow, it does work, guys, but sometimes it does burn your budget with one short sale property, right? Because it's just the algorithm, and some of our agents go through a really hard time figuring that part out, right? Even if they switch a zip code, the new zip code will have another short sale, and they go through the same thing. So you got to make sure that you can reach out to Zillow, see if they can help, but most of the time it's just part of that budget. Okay. But if you are thinking about checking out different area code, Kew Gardens, Woodside would be my top searches there. Okay. All right, guys. This is one of our agents, right, who recommended this website. They're saying, RPR is great when we're doing the research for our client. They say, hey, I want to be in this area. I want to find out good schools. So they don't have access to RPR, or maybe you don't want to give them the full report on RPR and tell them, hey, I'm going to give you a website and go ahead and search any area that you want and get the, different ratings for the schools. So the website is called greatschools.org. So you can see that on the slide here. And this is what the homepage looks like. You simply put in the school name. Sometimes you have no idea what the school name is. Just type in the zip code, right? And it will give you the results. So it will compare different school systems or different schools, the top schools, even it will have a different ratings. So obviously the ratings are from 1 to 10, 10 being the best, right? So if you see 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, that means it's a good school. Okay. So on this chart, on this slide here, I did a research for 11420. So when we did that zip code here, you can see that there's two schools that are showing. One of them is for 5.5, the other one is 6. Okay, so this is PS 123. This is Hardship Creek Middle School. So again, you can do the research for them, or just simply send them the link. Hey, you want to be in that area? Go ahead, do the research, right? So you want to be that helping hand for your client. Greatschools.org. Okay. All right, guys. Next, we are advertising on Zillow. We are advertising on, Redfin. Some of our agents are doing it on Realtor.com. There's other websites out there besides Zillow, right? Number one, when we think about advertisement, majority of the realtors will say Zillow. So if everybody's saying Zillow, that means there's gonna be more competition there. So you want to check out other websites. So one of the websites is called Homes.com. CoStar actually bought this website or this whole company a few years back, and they created a budget of $1 billion. $1 billion. That's huge, right? That means they're serious with competing with Zillow and all the other websites. And the website, I was navigating it through yesterday, and it's pretty powerful. So maybe you can tell your clients if they want to go through that, or majority of the time you want to have your profile set up here. So if your clients, if Homes.com is spending billions of dollars or millions and millions of dollars on advertisement, and why not you be on that website? Okay. If you're part of One Key, obviously all of us are. Some of the profiles are already claimed, are on here. If it's not, I would recommend that you go to Homes.com, search for your name, see if your data comes up. If not, there's an icon where you can claim your listings or profile. So it is trusted by over 100 million buyers out there. It gives you, not one thing I love about this website was that each neighborhood, right? For Richmond Hill, South Hills and Park, they have, a 2-minute video showing local businesses and everything around that neighborhood. So it's pretty powerful what they're doing with each neighborhood out there. And I did some research real quickly with few of our agents, pulled out their name, and you will see their profile, you will see their closings and all that good stuff. And again, we want you to be on that website if you're not. Okay, you can see Mr. Ali here as well, Sheetal here. A lot of our agents are on this. I saw a few of them still needs to claim their profile. I highly recommend that you check out Homes.com. Okay, and if you want to advertise with them, on the first page towards the bottom of it, it says schedule a demo. Just put in your name, email, phone number, and they will contact you. Okay. I don't think any of our agents has been advertising on Homes.com. We'll get more details on that on the next meeting. In this meeting, the point is that you claim your profile. Okay. It's good advertisement for you guys. All right, guys. Next, we have this property here. The property taxes are on the high end, around $12,000. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. The lot size is pretty good, 5,000 square feet. And when I do the research, this is in Farmingdale. When we do the research on Adam, we saw that the listing should be, in the middle range of 636. On RPR, we're showing around the highest end 660. And the listing price was 625, I believe, on this property, right? So they priced it right. So when you're putting in an offer, send these screenshots to your client. Hey, I did my research. I would recommend that, they're asking for 625. Let's put in a full asking price because I feel like we can get that property on that price. Or you can say, hey, let's put it on the lower end, maybe 611, as you see here, 620, and see what does the listing agent say. Okay, the point here is to show, you want to build confidence with your client. Show them these screenshots. Hey, I'm doing the research, these are the stats I'm getting, or these are the numbers I'm getting, and this is what I recommend. Also, along with that, you can send them any sold property in that neighborhood. Maybe there was a property that sold up the block, or last week, 2 weeks ago. Send them those property. Hey, same property or similar property that was sold for this price. Okay. So every time you're putting an offer, you should be sending out screenshots. Okay. I like the fact that some of you guys are designing your own flyers instead of asking the office. That's good help for us, but we want you to stay in compliance. What good is it that you're creating your own flyers, but if it's not in compliance, the office will be violated. Obviously, you will get a violation as well. Okay, so if you're designing anything, it's perfectly fine. Design it, but we want you to include a couple of things. So first, if you want to design anything, one of the websites that we recommend is called Canva.com. They have a free features, a free plan, and also a paid plan, so you guys can navigate through that. But it gives you all the templates. One thing I like about Canva is like it gives you all the templates. You could probably do one for sold property, under contract. Obviously, we do one template for us as a company, but you guys can customize it in your own way. I have seen Rupinder do this, Gagan do this, AP just did it yesterday. So those are good things when you're promoting yourself. But again, we want to stay in compliance. So you want to make sure you include the company name, you include the company address, and the office number. And they don't have to be in large font. You can put it as small as you want, but they have to be there. Okay, that's the law. Equal housing opportunity sign, that needs to be there. This realtor one is optional, but since you guys are already paying MLS on every yearly basis, so why not include it in there, right? Because this realtor logo has a copyright, it's trademarked, so not anybody can just use that out there. But you guys are part of MLS, you guys can use it. So mention that this logo. If you guys want this logo here, I can send it to you guys, or just Google it. Equal housing opportunity and the realtor logo. Okay, so we do encourage you guys to make your content, but we just want you to stay in compliance. If you're not sure if it's in compliance or not, just send me a screenshot. You don't have to send me the original file, just send me a screenshot. I can take a look at it and tell you if it's valid or not. Okay. Okay. Next, guys, maybe you want to do this for yourself. Maybe your client is doing this right now. Sometime we go through where your identity might be stolen, your personal information was out there, and you feel like somebody's going to use your credit. You can actually place or lift a security freeze on your credit report. Okay, so what is that? Number one is going to be basically freezing your credit. Nobody can open up a new account under your name because you're freezing your credit, right? So why would you want to do that? Only if you feel like, hey, your personal information is out there, or identity has been stolen, and you're scared that somebody's going to use your credit. Okay, so because it's really hard for them to, if someone creates an account under your name, gets a credit card, uses that credit card, and you have no knowledge of that, right? Obviously, you can do a chargeback, you can go through that, but why not prevent all of that with just a credit freeze? Okay, so how can you do that? There's three main companies that all the FICO scores are collected with: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Three of them, right? So you can request that freeze by calling them, or doing it online, or by mail. The best thing to do is just call them. Okay. So maybe you can guide your clients on this, if they have any questions on that note, right? So how long does this freeze request take? So if you're putting in a request online or over the phone, it must be done by that agency within 1 business day. If you do it via mail, then up to 3 business days. And how about if you're getting a mortgage and you come to go to Mr. Hassan as a loan officer, and Hassan says, hey, I'm not able to pull your credit report. I know you're going under contract. I just can't pull it. There's nothing coming up. It might be a freeze. So you have to unfreeze this now. So Mr. Hassan might say, hey, you got to call up this company, Experian or TransUnion, whatever the freeze that he sees there, and they can release that freeze. So how long do you have to wait? Just about 1 hour. That's how quick it is. So after 1 hour, Mr. Hassan can run that file again and pull their credit right away. Okay, this freeze option is there to protect you when you feel like your identity is going to be stolen, or has been stolen, or is being violated in any way. Okay, I know we're going through a lot of slides. We have 20 minutes left, guys. Any questions, concerns, anything in your mind, guys? All right, guys. Next, guys, on Property Shark, these auctions, we are trying to send you these PDF files on weekly basis on WhatsApp and on Microsoft Teams for these auctions properties, right? This property caught my attention, but look at the lien amount. Because of the lien amount, it's $178,000. You think that the property is going to be sold for 178? Absolutely not, right? It's going to be close to the market. I just want you to experience the auction that actually happens, right? How much bidding war, how fast this property will go. Maybe it starts at 178 and it might end up with that $500,000 within 5 minutes or less. There's no way you're going to experience this through this meeting or anything like that. You have to go attend these. It is time consuming, right? It is time consuming to take your, at least spend half an hour going there, spending an hour there, coming back another half an hour. That means 2 hours is gone, right? But how are you going to get that experience? By actually doing it. It is tough, but trust me, once you get the habit of this, you're going to start networking with other people out there, from other agents, from other agencies. Just get your name out there. You never know what type of deal that you're going to be working with other people. So, Shito, the way you're, performing and all that with regular sales is great. But I feel like now with your experience within just last month or two, just the way, you're performing, I think this is something where you can benefit from, even with your investors. Anybody that shows you, thinks that, hey, you have an investor, say, hey, there's a property that's in Elmont, has a lien for 178. We know that's not realistic. We know that the property value is going to be higher. Let me take you to this auction, right? Have the agency's disclosure signed before. If you tell your client that you're going to get them a bargain, who wouldn't want to sign any document with you? You only going to get paid if he actually buys a property from there, right? But you're the one who's taking him. You're the one who's going to be telling him about this property, doing the research. So why not make some money out of that, right? That same investor, if you do find them the property, that person gets that tenants out, that person renovates that property, now wants to list it. Guess who he's going to go back to? That should be going back to you now. As a listing agent, you have that property. Okay, so there's so many good outcome can come, but you have to start going there. Okay, you got to expect zero. When this meeting started, we had 0 people in. At 11:04, we started the meeting, and now we have 8 to 10 people coming in, right? So you got to expect nothing. You're like, hey, I'm going to do my part, and let's see what the results are, right? Do it consistently, and you will get investors on your side, okay? Some of your clients may want to get a free credit report, right? Sometimes they don't want to go to a loan officer like Hassan here and say, hey, Hassan, pull my credit, and nobody wants to do that. And we can only pull a credit when we know that the client is serious, right? But how about if they want to get a free credit report? So you want to tell your clients that, hey, they can go simply to Experian.com and they can pull a credit report from there, okay? So once on their page, on the home page, you can click on credit, and then you can click on free credit report. You can do that with other agencies as well, but just at least get it from one of them done so you can see what your credit report looks like. Okay, it should be very similar to your Credit Karma or any other websites out there. So be that guide for your clients. Hey, you need a free credit report? Go to Experian.com and get one for free. Okay. Next, guys, we want to talk about these loans where, it's tempting to go with the ARM loan and be surprised a little bit later. We talked about negative equity before, where you're paying the mortgages, you're paying the interest, you're thinking you're paying the mortgage and you're paying the principal. Sometimes the principal is not even being touched, right? You're only paying interest. So you have to be careful. You have to tell your client to know the mortgage payment, what is the principal. Let's say your mortgage payment is $3,000. You need to know how much is that going, that $3,000, how much is it going towards your principal, how much is it going towards your interest and your other expenses, right? Your property insurance and your property taxes. But the main thing is going to be how much is it going towards your principal. If your principal is not being touched, that loan will never be paid off and you will eventually go through negative equity. So you got to make sure that sometime you want to compare your loan options. Sometimes you go with a shorter term. Maybe you want to go with a 15-year, 20-year, 25 years, but not your 30-year. The shorter the term, the higher your monthly payment will be, right? Because you're making everything in shorter term. Typically, you will get a lower interest rate because you're going to be doing a shorter term. Instead of 30-year, you're doing 15 years. Obviously, you should get a little bit better interest rates. And overall cost is going to be less. Why is that? Because instead of that 30-year mortgage, you're paying in 15 years. So you're going to pay the interest a lot less. On the other hand, if it's a longer term, your monthly payment is going to be lower, right? That seems really good. Hey, my mortgage payment is going to be maybe, $3,000. I was expecting 33, right? So that's a good thing. But because it's going to be a longer term, typically it's going to have a higher interest rate and you're going to be paying higher cost, which is your interest, right? We always mention you want to pay off your loan quicker, make extra payments. You're doing the reverse of that in this case, right? Some people who had 30-year mortgages and they say, hey, FHA, if you have FHA, you can modify that into 40 years. Of course you can do that. Of course you can lower your mortgage payment for 40 years. But in that 40 years, how much interest are you going to pay? A lot, right? So 40-year mortgages are asking for trouble. 15 years is the fastest, but it's going to cost you. So that's why you want to go with maybe 30 years and then start making extra payments whenever you can to reduce your total overall cost. Okay? And when you're comparing your rate options, if it's a fixed rate, it's a lower risk. There's no surprises. And that's, as a first-time homebuyer, that's what I want. I don't want my mortgage to change unless I know what's going on in there, right? You don't want any surprises. But the interest rate is going to be a little bit higher, okay? If it's going to be adjustable rates is going to be a higher risk, is uncertainty, right? There's going to be surprises. So, after the mortgage rates, you have a $3,000 payment today, it's not going to stay $3,000 for the rest of the loan. It's not, right? Because it's adjustable rate. But the catch is that you might get lower interest rate to start off with. Okay, so the last thing about your adjustable mortgages, when you see this number here, 5-1, right? So you guys need to understand that 5-1, that 5 is the number of years your initial interest rate will stay fixed. So that's a good thing, right? So for at least 5 years, my mortgage payment will not change. And the second number, which is 1, is the number how often your rate will adjust after the fixed period. That means every year after 5th, the 6th year, 7th year, 8th year, your rate is going to adjust. Okay? So you need to make sure that if your adjustable rate mortgages are great for investors. We always say that because that's the fact. Why is that? Because maybe as an investor, you're buying a property and you're going to flip that. And you're going to flip that within the first 5 years. No problem. But if it's a first-time home buyer and, they're buying a house and 7 years into it, 7th year, their mortgage payment has skyrocketed, right? It has gone up. They will have a problem. So it's not recommended for a first-time home buyer. It's perfectly fine if the investor know what they're doing, going with adjustable rate mortgages. Okay? We have seen cases where people are coming to the office and they're saying, hey, I had no idea about this loan that I had. I had it for 11 years and the mortgage is just, the payment has just going up and up and up every single year. So the loan officer maybe did not explain it, or maybe they were just too overwhelmed with this. But you need to understand what you're getting into when it comes to loan mortgages. Okay. And some of these lenders will ask you for an escrow account. So if your client is asking you for escrow, what is the escrow account? You guys should know what it is. Okay, it's very fundamental. Just think of an escrow account as a savings account that the lender is managing for you, right? This is going to be the funds your lender collects and holds in the account to pay two major things. One is your real estate taxes, your property taxes, and your home insurance. Okay, so what is the pros about this? So let's say when you do get a tax bill for $5,000 or $10,000, you don't have those funds sitting around. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you have an escrow account, then they're sitting there for sure because your lender has been collecting that from your mortgage payment, right? They already have those funds saved up. So now the time comes to pay that bill, they're going to pay that bill in one shot. There's no penalty, no issues or anything like that. Okay? So just make sure what you are able to explain to your client. A escrow account is a savings account that your lender is managing to pay your real estate property taxes and your home insurance. Okay? Some people will get this waived. Some people will say, hey, I don't want an escrow account. Then the lender will see, hey, what type of down payment they're putting down, what kind of income it looks like they have. If they feel like there's no risk, they already have a house or two or whatnot, it may be where the escrow account is waived. But then again, you would still need to worry about making sure that you have that tax bill money saved up. If not, obviously you're going to go through a payment plan and you will have bigger issues. So escrow account, especially for first-time home buyers, is a great option. Okay. On homeowners insurance, we do get that common questions like, hey, if my escrow account is set up already, why is my home insurance broker is asking for the first payment out of my pocket? Because that's how it works. That first payment has to come out from your pocket. Now your escrow account, that money is being saved up, and when the renewal time comes, then that home insurance will be paid from your escrow account by the lender. But the initial payment, the first payment, has to come from your pocket. Okay. All right, guys, this is for all the realtors out there. This is for the bathroom situation. When you showing a property, especially the first time you're going to see the property for your sellers and you want to get that listing, right? You want to make sure that they can transform the bathroom if possible, because the return will be there, right? Sometimes they don't have to be the expensive where they have to do a gut renovations. Sometimes it's the easy part, just to clean things up, make sure that you change the shower curtains, right? Small stuff will make a big difference when you're listing the property. When you want to take the photos, right? You don't want to take photos when the bathroom is looking super dirty, right? It will degrade your property. So the best thing to do is point out when you're talking to your seller, hey, Mr. Seller, I feel like these curtains needs to be updated. Maybe if you want, you want to put in new tiles, that's great. If not, at least let's take care of these shower curtains, right? Anything messy, anything that you see there, maybe just removing that garbage out will bring value to your property. Okay. Because we have seen it many times, even in the garage goes the same thing. Sometimes the garage is filled with so much crap in there and it just feel like you don't want to open that door. So you want to mention that, hey, I know you're not able to take care of everything, but small parts will play a big role when I'm showing you the properties and listing it on the market. Okay. Guys, again, you want to get paid, make sure your co-brokerage agreement is signed. We are having issues every week. Somebody's coming up, hey, I'm not too sure if I'm going to get paid or not. Rest assured that if your co-brokerage agreement is signed, you should get paid. There's a situation where you guys should know this, that your property doesn't have to be on MLS. If you are a licensed realtor, you don't have to sell only property that's on MLS. It could be any property out there. But how are you going to get paid? Is through these disclosures, right? These forms that everything is in your transaction desk, right? We had a deal done and the person said, hey, this was through a City Fabs and they have no idea what your disclosures look like. That's kind of sad because you're getting paid and we need to make sure that the disclosures are signed, and you're asking that, hey, which disclosure needs to be signed, right? We want to be on that level where all these disclosures are signed way before. You don't want to have any issues later on, right? We're not able to write any checks anymore if the disclosures are not there. right? It is a tough call. Before that, you come in, you give me the checks, we would write it right away. It's not the case anymore. You would have to come in, drop the check, make sure you have all the paperwork, when you're dropping the check. If it's on transaction desk, print those out, have it with you, right? I want to give a big shout out to Mr. Ali here. And sorry, Ali, every work that he does, even if it's on a listing agent or as a buyer's agent, even he's going through a dual agency now, he's always on top notch, right? Because he said, hey, I want to make sure that I stay in compliance. He's been in business for 20 years now, and he knows what he's doing. And we want everybody to learn from that, right? Why not? Because papers are what is telling me that, hey, I'm representing the seller or the buyer. These are the documents to support that, right? So he's going through a dual agency. He said, hey, make sure that the listing agent is telling the seller that, hey, this is a dual agency. And he has done that. And, big ups for that, right? We want to be transparent with our clients. Okay. Again, in July, guys, disclosures are super necessary. Negotiation skills will be super necessary for you guys because we will not see the commission on MLS. So get your game up. I already have few for our agents here. They feel like, hey, they're now going to make it. And my job as a broker is to provide you guys with tools and everything, with the training, but the confidence has to come from your side, right? That, that the willing to learn, so the willing to actually ask for your commission, the willingness to actually tell them what value you're bringing to the client has to come from you. I'll be here to support you guys. If you're going to go through one-on-one meetings with me, I have no problem talking about it. But when you guys out there, you're representing LJ, we want you to be staying professional as possible and get paid. Nobody's here to do free work, right? Either you get paid from the buyer or the listing side. Negotiate. Sometimes it could be partial. Maybe half of the percentages can come from the listing side, half of it can come from the buyer side, right? Everything is negotiable. Get your skills up. Tell me, where do you need help with? We have 70 agents. It's almost impossible for me to know which agent is going to be struggling with what stage, but you're the one who have to be telling me that, right? Written agreements. If you guys are coming in with your own agreements, great. If you want to run those with me, that's fine too. The standard one that we told you in transaction desk is there. So just make sure the exclusive transaction broker agreement, this is the agreement where the buyer will pay you. Okay. So all these things should help you guys navigate in the next coming months. But even it's today's market, guys, inventory is your friend, right? If you don't know your inventory, you don't know the market. When we say, hey, how's the market? That market is determined by the inventory. If we have enough inventory out there and you know about those inventory, then you can go ahead and tell your client, hey, there's a new property in this area. How are you going to do that? KV Core. Now we mentioned in your MLS will not even show you the commissions. So what's the point of going to Stratus? Make sure that you have logins in KV Core, go to listings, all MLS listings, and search for any area that you want to serve and see if there's any new properties out there. And this should be done on daily basis, or it should be done multiple times in a day. Maybe you're checking South Hilton Park or Queens area in the morning, and maybe you're checking Nassau or anything like that afternoon or the evenings. You have to come up with that. You guys are independent contractors. You guys have to come up with your own plan, right? Transaction desk, guys, I see majority of our agents are on top of it. I see you guys logging in and everything, but if you need any help, understand this, that if you understand this concept one time, you can use it hundreds of times. If you don't understand it, you're going to be struggling every single time. So the best thing to do is know your transaction desk, do a sample transaction, test it out yourself, see how the features are. It's top notch, right? So the system works, is being used by thousands and thousands of agents throughout the United States. So please use transaction desk. Okay, we're running out of time. I do have more slides. I'm running out of time, but any questions, concerns, anything on your mind, guys? Okay, so the biggest takeaway for today should be our seller's concession, right? That's going to be the new article that's coming in New York Times and everywhere else, is that those seller's concession that we mentioned is going to be not whatever you're asking for, that percentage is not being added to the current limits that we mentioned. So if they're going with the FHA loan, it's 6%. You can ask for 2 additional percent for yourself or whatever you're going to be negotiating. If you want more help or you want more, clarification on this, just reach out to me and we can talk that in one-on-one. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. Take care, guys.